Hey everyone, welcome back to Ask Amy. I'm starting a couple minutes late today because my dryer, which is next door, is on the spin cycle. So sorry if you can hear that, but I didn't want to get too far off schedule for those of you who like to join live. So here we are. So I hope you're doing well, having a great start to your summer so far. I have a really good question today from Francesca. It's a habit question and a change question, which is my thing. I love it. I love all your questions, but I especially love talking about habits and how change happens. And I'm really excited to just have so many good questions in the queue. I have, it's been just about a year. I think next week or the following week, early July, will be a year since I started doing these Ask Amy's, which is kind of crazy. It went by really fast. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's been a year. But, even since I started this and just put out a request for, hey, if you have a question, send it to me, I've had a lot of great questions, just a constant flow of them. I've never had a Monday where there's nothing or, there's always been stuff. And it's the pace is picking up and people are seeing these and sharing them and submitting more and more questions, and they're excellent questions. So thank you. Thank you for sending your questions. Thank you for watching. And I'm just so glad that that this is helpful for people, or interesting at least. If not helpful, at least it's interesting. Because, even if these aren't questions we have, that's the beauty in this, is that even when a question is asked that has nothing to do with you, never been on your mind in your life, it's still helpful. Like there's something about the way that we come to the answers, the place we look to get clarity is the same universally for all people, all the time, and for any question, any issue. And to hear that over and over again, and to see how people are pointed back there over and over again is really, really great for people. That's what I love so much about Little School of Big Change in our community there, is that we have a group of people who have all kinds of different things going on, but they just hang out and hear other people's issues and hear from others and see how those are all addressed, and they're all addressed in such a consistent, universal way, pointing at how we work, what's true of us, what isn't true of us but feels like it's true, which is all of our thinking. Like when you hear that over and over, it really does something for you. It shifts the way that you see yourself and your own issues without you even having to work on them. So it's a wonderful, wonderful kind of little system we have. So, hi everyone who's joined. Thanks for joining. So let me read Francesca's question. She says, "Dear Dr. Amy, I'd love your clarity on how the process of ending habits relies on discipline versus doing what feels natural. Some habits I started doing because they were the disciplined things to do, and they now feel intuitive and effortless, like consistently exercising. So at the beginning, I certainly didn't prefer exercise over remaining sedentary, and it was only when I started reaping the benefits of it that I began to crave it." Right. So she says, "I wonder if ending a habit like binge eating takes the same course. It seems to me that not acting on urges when they strike requires discipline. It certainly doesn't feel effortless to take a step back and acknowledge that this is just the mind doing its thing. In fact, the instinctive thing to do is to just act on the urge. My question is, does that mean it does take that initial discipline to experience the urge without acting on it? And then after doing so consistently, will that discipline start to look like intuitive, effortless dismissal of urges?" Thank you for your wonderful book and podcasts and asking these. I love this question because it speaks to the way that we've all been told it works. So, Francesca, you say, there are certain things that came to be habits through discipline, right? Like exercise. You don't love it. You're not doing it because it feels like it's a thing to do, or like because your common sense is telling you to do it, or any of that. Like sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you dislike it. You actively dislike it, but you do it anyway. And what you're sharing is that after doing it anyway for a decent amount of time, something shifted and you started to like it and it became relatively effortless, right? So Absolutely. Sometimes it works that way. And again, we're talking here about forming a habit, creating a positive habit that we're happy with. Sometimes it works that way, no question. So then you say, I wonder if ending a habit takes the same course, but it would be in reverse, right? So it doesn't feel effortless to step back and have an urge to do something and to just let it go. And you're absolutely right. It doesn't feel effortless. The instinct, it's not, I don't know if it's an instinct, but the habit, the pull is toward doing that thing that our mind is wanting us to do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a problem. So absolutely, you're totally right. It doesn't feel effortless. It doesn't necessarily even feel natural, even though our common sense can say, yeah, it's more natural to not binge eat than it is to binge eat, or it's more natural to sit here and not drink or smoke or do whatever we do than it is to do those things. In that moment, our thought created experience in that moment is just toward it. We're just like sucked into it, pulled into it, right? So you're totally right that that's the kind of the definition of the issue of it being a problem for us in our lives, is it doesn't feel natural and effortless to kind of just let that go without acting on it. So in a moment, it might take something that feels like effort or discipline to be with experience and to not act on it. So let me repeat that, because it's a huge distinction. In a moment, in any given moment for any of us, we might use something that we call discipline. We might use something that feels like willpower. We might do things that feel tough or feel like they're going against our nature in any given moment. And that makes sense, right? Like sometimes that's what's needed in a moment. In another moment, maybe it isn't. But what we do and what we use, even saying use doesn't really feel like it fits, but what we call it and how it feels and whatever all that is, like in any given moment, is just about any given moment. It's not the same as turning it into a strategy for here's how we end habits. So that's what I hear everybody do. And you, Francesca, in a sense, your mind is wanting to say, okay, tell me the strategy for how to end a habit. Is it that I use discipline? And is it that every time my mind goes to doing my habit, I use discipline to shut that down and not do it? No. No. That is not a great strategy at all for deep, lasting change. Has it worked for people? Yes. All kinds of things work for people, right? If there have been people, no question, that come to pretty much any habit and say, okay, so when I want to drink, I'm just going to say no. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to turn away. Like that has worked for people, I'm sure. But it's hard, and it is indirect. And what I mean by that is it's us focusing on the behavior and disciplining ourselves out of a behavior without looking at all at what that behavior is based upon, like the foundation beneath that behavior. So if you're in Little School of Big Change, or if you've talked about it outside of the school, I use this iceberg metaphor a lot. What we tend to do, and innocently, what we've been pointed toward and taught to do when we want change to happen, is we see an iceberg, and what do we see? We see that little tip, which is about 10%, and we just beat that iceberg. We go to the tip, and we do things differently, and we use discipline and willpower and different strategies and tools, and we're going to work on that top little tip of the iceberg that we see, and we do it with effort. And that tip of the iceberg, when it comes to our habits, is, or just anything that we're caught up in, is the part that we see. So it's I'm going to fight my urge. I have an urge to binge eat. I'm going to not do that, and it's kind of equivalent to like using a lot of effort and trying to move an iceberg by chiseling at it from the top down. Has it worked before? Sure. People spontaneously recover all the time too. So all kinds of things have worked or can work, but it's a really, really horrible strategy because you're going to get exhausted way too quickly. This is why the average diet or New Year's resolution or big, commitment to change lasts on average 17 days. We get tired. We're going at it with effort and willpower, and we just simply get exhausted. That doesn't last. It doesn't carry us through that long. And even if you can sustain it, it's starting at the top and doing things differently without having any new insight, without seeing anything differently. So in a sense, we're bringing discipline over and over and over to the party, and we're hoping that sticks. We're hoping, it's a gamble. We're hoping, okay, if I just do this enough, maybe my brain will stop giving it to me, and then I can just be free of this. Which again has a certain logic to it, and I'm not saying it's never worked, but it's the hard way, and it's so indirect because we're up here when why not go to the core of it? Why not go to the foundation of it? So to flip this and start to show you what's in my experience and what I've seen with thousands of people, literally thousands of people, like what helps in a deeper way is going to the foundation of that. So rather than the discipline, the action, the here's what I do, the bigger strategy, it's about seeing our experience in a different way. Now, when we see ourselves, our nature, when we see how our experience comes to life, and the urges that you're mentioning here, it's just another piece of experience. An urge is just a thought brought to life, a feeling brought to life. It's no different or special or unique, or, it operates exactly like any other thought, feeling, experience brought to life. So when we see something about that, the whole behavior that comes down the road, it just doesn't happen. It's like when you see that it's better to open the door and walk through it than to just try to walk through a closed door. Well, you don't need discipline. Like when you see that, household cleaner is poisonous, it doesn't take discipline to not drink it. You just see something about it, and that takes care of the behavior. So this is why everything I've seen lead to deep, sustainable, lasting, inside out, bottom up change starts at that foundation. And the foundation is our understanding of who we are and how life works. When we start there, everything that's built upon that, which is everything, it just starts to change and crumble by virtue of us looking at the essence, and seeing things different at that level. And it's very, very different than the kind of change where we focus first on, let me do this differently and hope it sticks. Now, again, I just want to acknowledge, everybody's doing it that way. By everyone, I don't even mean those of you who are probably listening to this, but I mean just in general. I'm massively stereotyping the earth, but in general, any little corner of the earth, you're going to ask people, okay, how are you going to change your habit, or how are you going to make this stick, or how are you going to go about this? Almost everyone is going to tell you something they're going to think or do differently. We go right to the tip of that iceberg. Well, here's the problem. I binge eat, so I'm going to eat differently, or I'm going to think differently. Or if you're a little more sophisticated, which you are, Francesca, and all of you listening are, I'm going to handle my urges differently. I'm going to bring discipline to my urges, and I'm going to not act on them. Yeah, but you're still way up here. You're still trying to deal with something that's come into form, a thought, a desire to binge eat. We're trying to tackle it and deal with it, and then we're hoping that the change applies and sticks and goes deeper. But doesn't it make more sense to start from the bottom up and see all of our experience in a different way? See, oh, this is poisonous, therefore I no longer have any urge to put it in my mouth. I'm talking about the cleaner, not binge eating, but see something. Oh, the door is closed. I'm not going to walk through it. I'll open it first. We want to see how things work first, and then the change that comes from that is relatively effortless. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's effortless in every single moment of our lives. So there's a huge distinction. I love your question for bringing this into light, Francesca, because it's you're totally right, and you're pointing out what looks like a paradox very wisely. You're right. Yes, in a moment, we sometimes need effort, discipline, action. That's in a moment. But that does not mean we want to extrapolate and say, therefore, this is our strategy. Here's how I'm going to change. It's going to be more effort, more discipline. That's where we get into trouble every time. So if we start from the bottom up and we go for a sea change, we try to see things differently, well, the foundation of that iceberg starts to shift. Everything that's above it has nothing to stand on as the foundation's shifting. And then at any given moment, it might be hard sometimes. It might feel like it takes a lot of effort. Sometimes you might do some mindfulness technique to help you in a moment. Sometimes you might go take a walk. Sometimes you might use discipline. But none of those become the strategy that you now take with you and apply in every moment of your life. Therefore, no, because we're getting a constant stream of common sense and new thought that's showing up to help us in every individual moment. I hope that makes sense. That's like clear in my mind, but it's always like just see if you can get a feel for that. There's a moment-to-moment way that we show up with our experience, and that's going to just show up for us in the moment, and nothing is off limits there. Like you do what occurs to you to do, but we don't then take that and apply it to everything and say, here's how I'm going to end this habit moving forward. And again, to your point, sometimes positive habits start. Me too with the exercise, exactly like you said. I started in 2003. The week I quit smoking, I said, okay, I guess this is good a time as any, right? I'm going to start exercising at least five to six times a week. Well, I did it. It's been 15 years, and now it's effortless. Now I feel bad when I don't do it, not in a guilty way, but it just is, right? So sometimes starting with discipline and behavior, it does kind of stick and just become the new normal. And sometimes when we're breaking habits, but it's hard, and it's like, why go the indirect route? I don't see it stick when it comes to breaking habits as much as we would like. If it did, like, again, that's what everybody's doing. That's the prevailing method out there. So if it helped, we'd have a lot fewer habits and people would be a lot freer. But it just doesn't have the deep kind of staying power that we'd want it to. So look deeper first, knowing you can do anything that you need to do in any given moment. So I hope this makes sense. I hope it's helpful. Love this topic because, man, it's just like applies to everything. Like we're all kind of innocently up here trying to like work our way through things, hoping it has some staying power, but there's a deeper place to look that makes things so much easier. So thank you, Francesca, for your question. Thank you, all of you who have sent amazing questions. Like I said, I have a lot on deck for the next while. But don't let that dissuade you from sending a question. If you have one, I'll get to it soon. And I love seeing them come in. And they're great and helpful. And thanks so much. And I'll see you next week.